just start reflecting and contemplating about death, that I am going to die. How long am I on this planet? I don't even know. I mean, I could die the next day. You know, Prophet ﷺ said, visit graveyards often, because that is a very stark and rude reminder that even if we have built these palaces and we live in these wonderful homes, ultimately the body is going to end up there. Sometimes people ask me why I like Sufism, why I'm a fan of Sufism, because of two things. One, when you actually understand the teachings of the Sufi masters, so this is an important, I want to stress on that, when you actually understand the teachings of the Sufi masters, you will realize that their concept of Tawheed was very clear. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand their more esoteric teachings, their teachings on tasawwuf. A lot of people don't have the mental intellect or the philosophical understanding of those concepts, and therefore they call them different things. But that does not change the fact that these are of very high philosophical value, and you cannot challenge their iman. Their tawheed was very strong. And then the other thing, the other reason why I really love the Sufi teachings is because they really understood human psychology, and their curriculum on developing inner strength, on tazkiya-e-qalb, they actually have a curriculum on that. It's very beautiful. And one of the things when I was studying, which I do in my life a lot, is that for many diseases of the heart, such as greed, hubbe jah, hubbe maal, so the greed for money or wealth and the greed for social stature or power in life, these are two very, very destructive forces, and if one gets stuck in those, they will destroy your life, or if you are a slave to them, you will destroy as many people as you need to, such as Hitler and those kinds of people. It was hubbe jah at work. That's the example that we see. So in order to cure these diseases, they have very interesting cures and remedies that they recommend, and one of them is frequently contemplating and thinking about death. A lot of people, because I constantly talk about death, I think about death, and people tell me that this is very morbid. Why are you such a morbid thinker? And a lot of youngsters actually do this too, that, oh, so-and-so constantly talks about death, that's morbid. It's not morbid at all. It's actually very realistic and pragmatic. And I'll tell you some of the other benefits of thinking about death frequently. Here's what the ego does. The ego is only interested in survival, and the ego basically tells you that you are this personality. The thoughts that you think, the programming that you're running, the stories that you tell yourself about the events taking place in your life, that's who you are. But the reality is, I am not my thoughts. I'm also not the stories that I have attached to what happened in my life. I'm also not the events that happened in my life. You know, a divorced woman, an abused woman, a this woman, a that, an empowered woman, or whatever. Is that really who I am? No, these are just definitions or labels given to personality. You might give me one label, somebody else might give me another label. So who am I really? Ego wants me to think that this is who I am, the person who thinks these thoughts and who has these feelings. But that's not who I am. Because who I am existed way before I came into this body, way before I started describing myself as a certain person. And that self, that me, is going to continue to exist after I have tasted death, which is the biggest reality of our lives. So we get stuck in all these things that the ego desires. First, it defines you, then it defines the things that you should be desiring and wanting in life, so that you can gain a stature, or you can be exalted, or you can be respected, or whatever. All of that is defined by the ego. And then the ego says, yeah, don't think about death. Even though every single person who has come onto this planet, or human beings that we know, all are going to die. We know that. I'm going to die. I know that too. But on a daily basis, we continue to forget that. And the ego actually creates very, very interesting scenarios and distractions. Sometimes it'll create a problem so that your mind is just continuously focused on solving problems, on achieving things, on gaining status, on all these things, so that you don't think about death, because the ego is very scared of death. That's when the ego is actually going to cease to exist. Ego's survival depends upon not thinking about death. Death is the biggest reality. What happens when you think about death constantly? Then the importance of these things, these achievements, these belongings that we have, their importance suddenly becomes very, very less. It becomes reduced. And what then becomes our focus is, oh my God, what's going to happen after I'm not on this planet? Should I go after this job? Should I go after this promotion at the cost of my integrity? Is that really a wise choice? So you begin to ask yourself these questions instead of just saying, I'm going to win at all costs. I need to be successful. I need to be alpha in this. Instead of doing those things, now your other side, the self that is actually eternal, that was present before this life on earth, and that is going to be present afterwards also. It's eternal. Now that self becomes the voice, we begin to hear its voice. It cautions you that, you know what, right now you're going to compromise on something very important that you can't afford to lose. For the sake of what? This temporary gain that may or may not even, survive you throughout your life on this planet. So in that regard, I find that there's so much wisdom in the Sufi teaching. If you begin to do this as a practice, just mark your calendar, put it in your smartphone, just do it for 30 days. If you have issues with competition, with jealousy, that you find that you can't overcome your greed, that you are always hungry for power and you hurt other people, you step on other people to get to the level you want to get to, and you want to change that, just start reflecting and contemplating about death, that I am going to die. How long am I on this planet? I don't even know. I mean, I could die the next day. But the biological, projection we have for human life is about 70 years maybe. So how many years do I have left? Think about those things often. Prophet ﷺ said, visit graveyards often, because that is a very stark and rude reminder that even if we have built these palaces and we live in these wonderful homes, ultimately the body is going to end up there. The ruh is still going to be living somewhere else. And whatever we have done, that ruh is going to be basically cashing in on that. So I don't want to sound too religious for people that, they get turned off by talk of religion. This is not really religion that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the stuff that quantum physics is talking about. I'm talking about stuff that quantum reality is talking about. Quantum mechanics scientists are talking about this stuff. There is proof that there is a part of human existence, the human consciousness does not die with the body. We know that. Where does it go? They're thinking about it, they're exploring it. We already know from our religion, from Quran, we already know. So if you don't want to think about it from a religious point of view, think about it from a scientific point of view. Think about it from an existential point of view, that this is reality, and it is unwise to just think that this is it. This little span of time that we're spending on planet Earth is it. The way I want to explain it is that, let's say, when I travel back to USA, I go from Pakistan to Qatar or Dubai, and then I go to Dallas. And that transit is typically three and a half hours long. So if I started my journey from Lahore and I landed in Qatar, and then I just made Qatar, those 3.5 hours, I started buying things, I bought a tent, I made a nice bed, and I'm gonna make myself very comfortable in that place of transit, and I'm gonna forget all about my final destination, which is Dallas. That would be so foolish, because I know, I've been told this is transit. Just make yourself as comfortable as you can, but remember you're going to have to get on the plane and get to Dallas, which is then your final destination. So think about it that way. Don't compromise. Don't make compromises that are going to mess up your journey and then your destination. Don't do those foolish things. So hopefully this is going to help.